If you don't have a green thumb like me and do much better with virtual farming, here is a list of 10 farming cozy games for you to check out. Kyo, welcome back to cozybichota. I hope you guys are doing really well. Last week I made a video of 15 no farming cozy games for cozy gamers who are just not really fond of farming but really want to enjoy the cozy gaming genre. So if you want to check that video out, I will make sure to link it in the description and also somewhere here on the video so that you can easily click on it. Farming sims still are my favorite type of games, so I did want to make a video dedicated to it. And I also wanted to highlight how farming sims have changed over the years. So instead of just the typical, you inherited a farm and you're taking care of it, we have a lot more games that focus on farming maybe in space, or farming in a colonial period, or farming and magic. There are also some games whose farming isn't too heavily routine-based, but is a part of it, while you also enjoy an adventure or a storyline to it. So I also wanted to make sure to include those in case you're not a fan of farming or want to try a farming sim game, but don't really like the repetitiveness of it. So hopefully you can find a game that you do like on this list. Just to start off, I haven't really gotten into Story of Seasons or the Harvest Moon series. Those tend to be pretty foundational for some of the games on this list. I do own a few Story of Season games that I need to get into a little bit more. One of them being Pioneers of Olive Town and Friends of Mineral Town. And I have played Olive Town quite a bit and I do enjoy it, but I haven't played enough to be able to have it on my top 10 list. The games on this list are 10 that I really do love and enjoy a lot. Hopefully I play more Story of Seasons and Harvest Moon games to be able to pick one out of them and be able to name it as one of my top 10 or top 15. But to start off this list, I wanted to talk about a classic one in the farming sim genre, and that is Stardew Valley. You have probably heard Stardew being mentioned multiple times, and that is just because of the masterpiece that it is, in my opinion, and the fact that one man put this whole game together. Stardew Valley has an amazing story and characters. The more hearts you unlock with them, the more that you get to fall in love with each one of them, or maybe have a little bit more resentment towards them because they're not your favorite. There's a huge fan base, meaning you can turn to somebody and ask for some guidance. There's a wonderful wiki with a ton of resources and guidebooks from Fangamer where you can guide yourself through your gameplay if you're getting a little bit lost. Stardew Valley definitely does not walk you through the game or have any tutorials. It's more just play it and figure it out on your own. It's got your classic farming mechanics to it, a wonderful mining system. It's probably one of my favorite mining systems, since I do like to fight off monsters at the same time. And the more you unlock the story, the more you truly fall in love with this game. And it's got those beautiful pixel art graphics as someone who really loves pixel art. Stardew Valley is at the top of this list because it is my favorite farming sim and one that I always like to recommend. I do think it's a lot of fun with a friend or maybe somebody that knows how to play the game if it's your first time playing it, or I recommend checking out maybe a guide or the wiki just to help you along. Next is a game that is almost up there with Stardew, but because it's an early access, I cannot put it first yet. I want the full game release to have the whole experience, and that is Fields of Mistria. Fields of Mistria released in early access in August 2024. And is anticipated to only be in early access for a year, so we can enjoy the fullness of the game at some point this year. Fields of Mistria takes everything I love about Stardew Valley, but adds a lot of quality of life aspects to it that makes the gameplay a lot easier, or at least a little bit more approachable, as it does have tutorials in it. It has a magical element to it that you feel throughout, and that is probably my favorite thing. It is unique. It also has deep characters and wonderful events. I've thoroughly enjoyed going to Friday nights at the inn or the Saturday market, as well as all the cutscenes that I have unlocked with villagers. Aside from that, it has standout colors and style. It does do a great ode to the 90s and anime and the earlier farming sims. If you're looking to play a game but are intimidated by Stardew Valley, I would recommend Fields of Mistria, even though it is in early access. It has had one major update so far, hopefully another one coming out soon, and then possibly the full release. The next game on this list is one that I don't think is hyped up enough and I wish was mentioned more, and that is Roots of Pacha. Roots of Pacha takes place in a prehistoric era, So if you've been wanting to try out farming but prehistorically and just have something a little bit different from the typical modern age farming, I do really highly recommend this one. One of the things that really stands out the most for me when it comes to Roots of Pacha, aside from the really innovative way of doing farming and also taking care of your clan, because the whole point is to gain more points towards your contributions to growing. So rather than having an actual monetary system in the game, you have contribution points. The more crops you sell, the more things you do, the higher the contribution points are, the more you unlock, and the more advancements you will get in the game. For example, at first you start off with a bucket to water your plants, and then you develop a different watering system. So it's really good to see how the contribution towards into advancements. Another standout feature of Roots of Pacha is there's absolutely no fighting. The caves actually have a puzzle system in them. So you mine away, you want to get further into the caves, you're going to have to figure out a puzzle. I thought that was really innovative. The seasonal events are also really interactive. I enjoy going to every single seasonal event in this game. I haven't had a bad experience with a single one so far, and I love that. And on top of that, you can also mount prehistoric animals and ride them throughout the game just to make walking a little bit faster, and I really love that too. If you know me pretty well at this point, you'll know how much I love Eastward. Eastward has such a special place in my heart. It's probably within my top 5 or 10 games ever. I just really love the storyline in it. And they dropped a farming sim DLC last year called Octopia. And Octopia takes place kind of after the events of Eastward, but in a way that you don't really need to play Eastward in order to understand Octopia. In Octopia, you focus in a little bit more on the character development and the characters themselves that come from Eastward, and I really love that. However, I do highly recommend checking out Eastward and playing it before playing Octopia, as I found a deeper love and connection to the game because I played it. Octopia has wonderful retro feelings to it, and as somebody who really loves retro games and has more of a retro vibe, I really appreciated that about this game. It does have a bigger focus on cooking with the crops that you grow, which is phenomenal. And if you've played Eastward, you'll understand how essential cooking is. It's one of John's best traits. So being able to incorporate that in this game, I thought was top notch and a great detail. You also form relationships with the people in town, which helps build up the town up again. Another game that doesn't have fighting in the mines, so if you're somebody that doesn't really enjoy fighting in mines, you're going to be able to engage in a mini game instead. I think overall, Octopia is a lovely addition to Eastward, and as I said before, even more appreciated when played after finishing Eastward. Next on the list is a game that has a little bit of a hit or miss type of reaction to it, and that is Fae Farm. But I absolutely really enjoy Fae Farm. I think it does such a great job with a very different type of mining system in it, as well as I really enjoy the DLCs that come with it. So if you're somebody that enjoys less dialogue with NPCs or less character and relationship building with the fellow NPCs, this might be the game for you. Fae Farm focuses on fairies and magic with a greater focus on farming and dungeons and less on the relationships. My favorite thing about the farming is that you get to use your magic to water the crops the more you unlock further in the game. The dungeons are really tricky, and it really forces you to use magic in order to complete each one of them. So the more spells you learn along the way, the easier it is to complete the dungeons, and I think that does a really good job of emphasizing the importance of upping your magic skills. Fae Farm does have less of an emphasis on the relationships, and although you can romance in this game, it's not really as in-depth as, say, a game like Stardew, where you really get to see the character development. So if you're somebody who's less interested in intricate relationship building and more want to just enjoy a casual story-based game, I would really recommend Fae Farm. Next, we have a game that takes place in the colonial era, and that is Echoes of the Plum Grove. If you're somebody who enjoys Paper Mario style graphics and maybe something centered around more of a period piece, then this one might be a really great one for you to check out. Echoes of the Plum Grove has a generational consequency vibe to it. The main focus of the game is farming, but also the generations that come with it. So there is a drive to continue on your lineage by having kids, forming families, so that the game continues. If you die in the game, then your lineage ends and you have to replay it. So there is a little bit of a stress factor or a little bit of a pressure to make sure that you continue on with your lineage. There are consequences in the game such as sickness spreading. So you want to be able to take care of yourself, kind of have a lookout for the people in your community in the town that seem like they're sick to keep you or your family from getting sick. And the fishing mechanic is not exactly my favorite, but the best part of this game is that you can toggle off the fishing mini game, the diseases, the tools, and just play at your own pace, make it a little bit more comforting if you don't really like the pressures of the other things that I do think are more of an ode to the colonial times. This is also another game that does not have any fighting in the mines, but rather you just go in for materials. So if you've been thinking about playing a game that is very unique and a standout, I do highly recommend Echoes of the Plum Grove. Next up, we have a game that also has some magic in it. I really do like games with magic in them, so there are quite a few in here, and that is Sunhaven. Now, I do recommend playing Sunhaven with friends. That's just my opinion. I have a lot more fun when I'm playing it with friends, even though I have enjoyed my individual gameplay of it as well. In Sunhaven, you can pick the type of being that you want to be, whether it's a human, maybe a fairy. It has a very interesting storyline to it as you progress further and further to figure out what has been going on with the town around you and this kind of dark magic or energy. The mines in this game do have fighting in them, and I do really like it. There's an emphasis on really getting your resources so that you get better keys to unlock each floor and keep them permanently open. There is fighting in this game, so you really want to advance in your fighting experience in order to make it a little bit easier with the fighting. And there are different biomes that you can uncover, so I really enjoyed that as well. Sunhaven has a lot of complexities to it, which is why I do emphasize playing it with friends, so somebody can kind of tackle one experience or area a little bit more than another friend can, so that you can advance a little bit further. But overall, I love the graphics of Sunhaven. We've got those pixel art graphics again. I love the little incorporation of magic and different beings and all these like mystical type things. So I do really recommend this game if you're wanting something a little bit different in that magical realm. Next, we have a game that does have farming in it, but there is a lot more storytelling at the heart of it, and that is Wylde Flowers. So maybe you're somebody who's kind of tired of farming games and wants to pick up a game that has a little bit more story to it instead. I recommend Wylde Flowers. Or if you're a person who has a hard time with farming sims and want to try one out, but don't know where to start, I also recommend Wylde Flowers. The pacing in Wylde Flowers is up to you, honestly. You can play it as fast as you want or as slow as you want, and the story progresses with as much effort as you put into it. You are in control of changing the seasons. So it's not like you're running up against a clock. Rather, you choose when you want the clock to tick. And I think that that is such a great addition to a farming sim. It has wonderful narration and voice acting. It's probably my favorite voice acting in all games. And the magic is there. There is a hard emphasis on magic and on getting to know the story and the characters, and I think that is perfect. I think it is a great introduction to farming if you're somebody who's starting off for the first time. This is another game that has absolutely no fighting in the mines. It is the epitome of just cozy farming with wonderful storytelling. Up next is a game that I was really anticipating in 2024, and I'm so glad that I got it when it released, and that is Little Known Galaxy. So if you're somebody who's been interested in farming sims, but with a different hot take or a different approach, then I do recommend this one as it takes place in space. So in Little Known Galaxy, you are farming in space. You are the new captain on the ship that is deteriorating, and you need to put it back together and uncover different planets. The mining in this game is more focused on arriving to different planets and going through the typical mining process of unlocking a few floors before you unlock an elevator or a location to be able to fast travel to that floor in the mines. You do meet some really interesting creatures to battle on the planet, so I really like that as well. The thing about Little Known Galaxy is that it does a really good job of incorporating that space aspect in farming. So one of the things that really stood out to me was the fact that you can create medicine. You can do this mini game where you encounter different germs and you're trying to track them down. You try to figure out what germs they are and then make medicine out of it. I think that's a really great advancement and a focus on some innovativeness that you need to do in space as a farmer. As well as your farming also includes you having to do a lot of building of different resources. You can plant your crops, you can plant your things, but you're not going to be able to grow them without having energy. So you're going to have to create a bit of a solar panel type situation and put that on top of the ship. Again, it really does a good job and focus on how can we make this seem like you are actually farming in space. I really like Little Known Galaxy. It also has those pixel art graphics, but not as intense as say Stardew Valley. So if you're somebody that's kind of not sure if you want to try out pixel art graphics, I would say try this one out first. And last on my list, because of the fact that it does have a lot of emphasis on farming, but also creature collecting, is Ooblets. Ooblets was introduced to me by an online friend who emphasized how great it is, and I'm so glad that I actually got to try it out. I was a little put off by the graphics at first, which is why I never tried out the game, but let me tell you, the graphics made it so much better. Ooblets is quirky. That is what I would say. That is the word that I would use to describe this game, as the graphics and the dialogue is so funny. I love how whimsical it is. I love that every single interaction that I had with somebody in the town or the storyline progressing had me laughing. It is just so unique. Ooblets has a bigger emphasis on creature collecting than any of the games on this list, and probably the only one on this list. So you do a little bit of like that Pokemon style, go up to an animal or creature, give them something that they are looking forward to, maybe a crop that you grew, maybe a meal that you made from your crops, which is where the farming comes in, and you do a dance battle with them with card mechanics. It's really cool. It's really fun. Rather than picking a move, say like you do in Pokemon, you're going to want to pick a card and use the ability on the card. And then once you beat a dance battle, you don't take the ooblet that you won. Rather, they give you a seed that you're going to grow yourself, and you're going to grow your own ooblet. Ooblets doesn't have any mining in it. It's all just based on story and traveling to different locations and completing different quests and meeting different ooblets and growing them and farming. The ooblets help you on the farm, so there's a little bit of an automation to it as well. It's probably one of the most unique farming sim games that I have ever played, and I really do enjoy it. Now, I do want to mention an honorable mention, which is Luma Island. So it's not in my top 10 for farming sims, because I feel like Luma Island has a bigger focus aside from farming, depending on the profession you pick. So in Luma Island, you've got all these different professions you can pick, and depending on the profession, depends on what you need to do in the game. So if you were to say that you wanted to become a brewer, or you wanted to become maybe like a baker or something like that, growing crops are probably going to be super important, since you're going to need all of those ingredients in order to make a drink or in order to make a dish. However, if you're going to pick a profession, say like jeweler, you might not need a crop in order to make jewelry. Instead, you're going to be asked to probably go into the mines to collect more resources and gemstones. So the farming aspect of this game does really come in depending on the profession that you pick, but I would not say don't do farming at all. You can also collect Luma, so there is a little bit of creature collecting after unlocking different puzzles from different mines or different caves or ruins. So Luma Island has a little bit of everything. This is a game that does not have character development, in the sense you're not going to be romancing anybody or looking forward to a much deeper storyline with one particular NPC. You're just trying to build up the area up again and unlock different biomes. So that is my list of 10 farming sims for people to check out. These are my current 10 favorite that I've really enjoyed. And as somebody who doesn't do really well with growing things, I really like being able to do it in a virtual platform. So if you are not a farming sim girly like me, I would still recommend these games, and maybe finding one that stands out to you if you want to try farming sims. Or if you are a farming sim girly like me, let me know if you haven't tried out any one of these games yet. In the comments below, I would love to hear which games stood out to you, which ones you're still kind of questioning, or which games you think I should include or try out myself. If this video helped you out with farming sims, please consider giving it a like. And if you want more cozy and gaming content, please make sure to hit the subscribe button on your way out. And from one bichota to another, stay cozy and see you next time. Adios!